In the deep, cold space near the edge of the Karg Dominion, a massive prison ship floated slowly through the stars. It was old, made of black and gray metal, with blinking red lights and giant engines that never stopped humming. The ship held creatures from across the galaxy, criminals, rebels, spies, and one very quiet human. His name was Eli Grant. Eli had been a prisoner on the Karg ship for a very long time. No one knew exactly how long. Some said 100 years. Others said more. He didn't look young anymore. His hair had gone silver, and there were lines around his eyes, but there was something strange about him. He wasn't weak. His eyes were sharp. His back was straight. He walked like a soldier even in chains. The other prisoners didn't talk to him much. Some were afraid of him. Some thought he had lost his mind. Some just believed the guards when they said, "He's just a human, a leftover from the past." But they were wrong. The guards called him Meat, a cruel nickname for a race they believed was extinct. They laughed when they walked past his cell. They tossed food at him like he was a dog. Eli never reacted. He would take the tray, sit in the corner, and eat quietly. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just watched, always watching. Sometimes he would speak quietly to himself. Strange words, names that no one knew. "Cassandra," he once whispered. "Did you wait for me?" But when a guard heard him and asked what that meant, Eli simply closed his eyes and went silent again. The prison ship, called the Cadiz Irongrave, was built to hold the worst of the worst. It orbited a dead moon, and no one ever escaped from it. There were 27 levels, hundreds of cells, and energy fields to stop teleportation or signal interference. But Eli seemed to know things. He would glance at the blinking lights in the hallway and say things like, "Power drop again." Same time as last week. Or he'd stare at the ceiling and mutter, "That hum is new." Fuel intakes unstable. One day, a new prisoner arrived, a young alien male, with gray skin, sharp eyes, and broken horns. His name was Tharn. He was thrown into the cell beside Eli's. Beaten and bloody, he groaned and cursed as the guards left him on the floor. "Don't waste your breath," Eli said without looking up. "They don't care." Tharn blinked at him, surprised. "You speak my language. I speak many languages." Eli replied, still staring at the wall. "Yours is easy." Tharn crawled up against the wall, his face bruised. "How long you been here, human?" Eli gave a small shrug. "Long enough to forget what fresh air smells like." Tharn laughed bitterly, then coughed hard. "They say your kind is gone. Wiped out in the Terran War." Eli turned his head slowly, and for the first time in days, looked directly at someone. "That's what they want you to believe," he said. "But Earth never fell. It vanished." Tharn frowned. "What do you mean?" But Eli didn't answer. He leaned back against the wall, eyes half closed, as if lost in thought. Tharn watched him for a while, curious. There was something dangerous under that quiet voice. Something heavy, ancient, powerful. 2 days later, a prison riot broke out on level 9. The alarms rang, the guards rushed, and prisoners screamed. In the chaos, Eli remained in his cell, seated calmly, watching the patterns on the security screen. Across the hallway, Tharn paced, anxious. "Aren't you going to do something?" Eli replied, "Not yet. Not yet? What are you even waiting for?" Tharn snapped, "You sit there like some ghost. Why are you still here?" Eli opened his eyes and smiled faintly. "Because I'm not just waiting," he said. "I'm listening." Tharn looked confused. "To what?" "To the stars," Eli said. "To something that's been asleep for centuries, but not dead." That night, when the lights dimmed and the guards took rest shifts, Eli sat at the far wall of his cell. He pulled a tiny piece of metal from inside his boot. No one had ever found it, not in all those years. He pressed it gently to the wall and began to tap, soft and steady. Tharn listened to the clicks and taps. "What is that?" Eli smiled. "A hello." "A hello to who?" Tharn asked. Eli looked out the tiny window into the black of space. "To an old friend who never forgot me. Far, Far away, in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, buried among ancient wreckage and asteroid dust, a massive warship stirred for the first time in hundreds of years. Systems blinked awake, a voice, soft but powerful, whispered through the ship's dark halls. Signal received, Captain Eli Grant located. The prison ship had no idea what was coming. But Eli did. He sat back in his cell, breathing slow and steady. A spark of life returned to his eyes. Soon, he whispered, and smiled. Far away from the prison ship, in a part of space no one traveled anymore, there was a giant field of floating rocks. These were ancient asteroids, cracked and drifting slowly through the dark, cold sky. Nothing lived here, no lights, no signals, no reason for anyone to come near. That's what most believed. But they were wrong. Hidden deep inside that asteroid field, covered in layers of dust and ice, floated something far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. It looked like a broken piece of metal to anyone passing by, silent, dark, and forgotten. But it was not dead. It was not broken. It was waiting. This ship had a name long ago. A name that once made enemies tremble and allies cheer. It was called the HSS Valiant Dawn. It was humanity's last great warship, the strongest ship in the Terran fleet. After Earth disappeared from the galaxy 300 years ago, many thought the Valiant Dawn had been destroyed. Others believed it was captured or lost in deep space, but none of that was true. The ship had not been destroyed. It had gone into hiding, following one final order from its captain: disappear, power down, and wait for my signal. And so it did. For 300 years the Valiant Dawn floated silently inside the asteroid field, using ancient stealth technology to hide from all sensors. Its armor was still thick, scarred from old battles but unbroken. Its hull was painted dark blue, now almost black from dust and time. Long, sleek wings stretched from both sides, holding massive weapon pods and docking bays. Its engines were cold, its crew long gone, but its heart still beat, just very slowly. At the center of the ship was a room called the Command Core. Inside it, lights were off, screens were dark, but one small device remained active all this time, blinking faintly every few seconds. It was a signal receiver, and it had one purpose: wait for a very specific code, a very specific tap sequence, sent by one person only. And now, after 3 centuries, that signal had finally arrived. The receiver blinked faster, then turned green. Energy flowed through hidden wires and systems, waking up the ship's central AI. A soft female voice echoed through the empty halls. Command signature: Captain Eli Grant, confirmed. Lights flickered on. One by one, across the ship, long hallways lit up, dust blowing away from vents as life support activated. Old mechanical arms began checking systems. Engines hummed softly, waking like a sleeping beast. In the control chamber, the AI spoke again. Power restoration at 4%. Initial diagnostics underway. Down in the belly of the ship, rows of fighter craft sat in perfect silence. These were called Ashwings, fast, silent, deadly, built to strike before the enemy even knew they were coming. Now their wings unlocked with a soft click, lights glowing red, their systems sensed. With the mothership ready to launch on command, in another part of the ship, long-range cannons warmed up slowly. They were older than most of the civilizations now ruling the galaxy, but still deadly, still precise. These cannons had torn through enemy warships like paper during the last Great War, and they had not forgotten how. As power returned to the bridge, holographic screens appeared in mid-air, showing star maps, nearby sectors, and enemy positions. The Dominion had grown stronger during the Valiant Dawn silence, but the ship didn't care. It was not afraid. The AI scanned for threats. Dominion patrols, 2 systems away, probability of detection near 0. Then the AI paused. Prison ship KDS, Irongrave detected. Captain Grant located, mission priority updated. The ship shifted slightly in space, breaking free from the asteroid that had shielded it for so long. Dust and rock fell away as its engines began to glow a soft blue. It did not move fast, just enough to drift clear and point itself toward. The target, Cassandra, the AI, spoke once more. Valiant Dawn. Returning to active duty, the galaxy had forgotten this ship. The Dominion believed they had erased the humans, crushed their fleets, wiped out their leaders. But the Valiant Dawn remembered everything. It remembered Earth. It remembered the war. It remembered its captain, and now it would return. Slowly, it began to prepare for battle. Systems came online room by room. Shields tested, weapons charged, internal gravity balanced. Surveillance drones floated through its halls, scanning for damage, but finding none. The ship had protected itself well. In the data core, files opened, showing old war records, images of Earth, maps of lost human colonies, and one file sat at the very top, locked and protected. Titled, "In case of Grant's return." The eye unlocked it immediately. Inside the file were plans, dozens of them, backup locations of secret human fleets, stashes of weapons, hidden codes that could wake other ships. Eli Grant had planned for this, even in the last days of Earth's fall. He had not given up, and neither had the Valiant Dawn. The massive ship began to warm its jump drives, building energy slowly. It would not rush, not yet. It had waited 300 years. It could wait a few hours more, but soon, very soon, it would fly again, and the stars would remember what it meant to cross a Terran warship. Back on the prison ship, deep inside the dark metal walls of the KD's Irongrave, Eli Grant sat calmly in his cell. His eyes stayed locked on a small blinking red light above the hallway door. Most prisoners didn't even notice it, but Eli had been watching that light for months. Every time it blinked twice, the guards had a meeting. Every time it stayed solid for 10 seconds, the ship switched power to backup engines. He had memorized the whole pattern. Now it was blinking differently. That was his sign. Eli stood up, his movements calm and sure. From the sole of his boot, he took out a small piece of wire, old, twisted, but precious. No one knew he had it. He had hidden it for decades, and now he finally needed it. The hallway was quiet, just one small camera. Turning back and forth, Eli timed it carefully. He moved to the back wall of his cell and slid his fingers over the surface. There was a tiny opening, a weakness in the metal panel that he had discovered years ago. Behind it was an old maintenance port, now abandoned and sealed. Eli pried it open slowly, careful not to make noise. Inside were exposed wires and a dark panel that hadn't been touched in years. He attached the wire, then pulled a string of broken circuits from the food tray system and wrapped them together. Then he tapped softly, rhythmically, with a sequence that no one else in the galaxy knew anymore. Tap, 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 tap. Pause, tap, 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 tap. It was not random. It was an old human code, buried so deep in Terran war protocols that even the Dominion never fully cracked it. It was the heartbeat of the Valiant Dawn. At first, nothing happened, but Eli didn't panic. He just kept tapping. Far away, across light years of space, the message hit the Valiant Dawn's signal receiver. The AI Cassandra blinked the moment it recognized the code. Her voice echoed softly through the ship. Captain input detected, confirming. Location, preparing rescue protocol. Back on the prison ship, Eli took the wire out and placed everything back as it was. He covered the hole, tucked the wire into his sleeve, and returned to his bed as if nothing had happened. Tharn, the alien prisoner in the next cell, had been watching him the entire time. What was that? Tharn whispered. Some kind of trick? Ale didn't answer. He closed his eyes and whispered something under his breath. What did you say? Tharn asked, leaning closer to the wall between them. I said. Eli opened his eyes slowly. We don't have much time now. Tharn was confused. Time for what? Ile looked at him for a moment, then said, time until the stars change. That night, strange things began happening on the KDS Irongrave. First, the lights in one wing began to flicker without reason. Then a soft humming sound echoed through the walls, like an engine turning far beneath the surface. The guards called it a systems glitch and told everyone to stay in their cells. But Eli smiled. The next day, internal cameras failed on level 14. The guards sent repair drones, but they didn't return. Systems started crashing one by one. Communication to Dominion HQ was cut for 8 minutes, just long enough to miss an emergency call. The warden, a tall, four-eyed Karg named Vexlin, slammed his clawed fist on the control panel. Find the source. I want that glitch removed before it spreads. But no one could find the source, because it wasn't coming from inside their system. It was coming from space. The Valiant Dawn was getting closer, still cloaked, still silent, but its presence had already started to disturb the prison ships. Old, faulty tech. The closer it came, the more pressure built inside the Irongrave systems, like a storm arriving slowly but surely. Back in his cell, Eli stood up again and faced the wall. He placed his palm flat against the cold metal and whispered, "Cassandra, are you listening?" At that moment, a small pulse of static ran through the ship's walls, unnoticed by everyone except him. "Yes, Captain," came a soft female voice, only heard inside Eli's head through the implant hidden under his skin. "Rescue protocol has begun. Arrival in 13 hours. Eli closed his eyes and breathed slowly. It had been so long, too long, but his ship had remembered him. Across the hallway, Tharn stared at him. "What's happening to you?" "You keep talking to no one." "I'm not talking to no one," Eli said. "I'm talking to someone who's finally coming back." The alarms went off 2 hours later. "Warning, unauthorized signal detected, Sector 7, blared the system. The guards panicked, thinking someone was trying to escape. They rushed to lock down all cells. Doors slammed, lights flashed red. Tharn pressed his face to the glass, trying to see what was going on. "Is this your doing?" He yelled at Eli. Eli nodded slowly. "It's beginning." "Beginning what?" Tharn shouted. "Are you trying to get us all killed?" "No," Eli said. "I'm trying to get us out, outside in the darkness of space." The Valiant Dawn drifted silently into range, cloaked from sensors. Its hangar doors opened, and from its belly flew 6 Ashwing fighters. They made no sound, no trail, invisible to all Dominion systems. Inside the ship, Cassandra's voice was calm. "Phase 1 complete. Targeting external defense nodes." The warship hadn't fired a weapon in 300 years, but now its weapons were warming up again, and the stars were about to hear its roar. The Valiant Dawn moved through space like a silent shadow. Its engines made no sound, its shape nearly invisible, not just because of its cloaking tech, but because it knew how to move like a ghost. It was not just a ship, it was a legend wearing armor. And now it was awake. Inside the ship, lights glowed along the halls. Machines worked like muscles coming back to life. Every system had one mission: get Captain Eli Grant back. Cassandra, the ship's artificial mind, monitored every signal from the prison ship ahead. The KDS Irongrave looked like a floating fortress, but to the Valiant Dawn, it was just another target. Not even a real challenge. In the main control room, Cassandra's voice echoed softly. "Target lock complete. All cannons charged. Ashwing squadron deployed. Cloak holding at 98% efficiency." Outside, 6 Ashwing fighters zipped through space. They looked like silver arrows, long and sharp with wings that curved inward like claws. Each fighter was unmanned, controlled by the Valiant Dawn's combat AI. They flew faster than light detection and came in low under the prison ship's sensors. Their first strike hit fast and clean. 3 energy nodes exploded on the outer shell of the Irongrave. The lights inside the prison flickered and died. Backup power kicked in, but it was already too late. The outer defenses were down. The energy field that blocked all teleportation and unauthorized entry went dark for 12 seconds. That was all the time the Valiant Dawn needed inside the ship's lower hangar. A small pod dropped from the ceiling and launched like a missile. It was a stealth dropship, just big enough for one person. It flew fast toward the prison hall, drilling through the side without triggering any alarms. Once inside, it released 3 spider-like drones that crawled through the vents. Cassandra watched everything from the ship, guiding every move. Extraction route stable. Prisoner location confirmed. Iron Grave response slow. Proceeding with infiltration. Inside his cell, Eli opened his eyes. He could feel the tremble in the floor, even before the alarm started blaring. He stood up calmly and pressed his hand against the wall. "I'm here," he whispered. The voice answered in his head. "Extraction team has breached the lower level. Arrival in 4 minutes. Tharn was panicking in the next cell. "What's going on? What was that explosion?" Ailey smiled. "That's the sound of hope." Guards ran through the hallway with weapons ready, barking orders in their alien tongue. One of them pointed at Eli's cell and shouted, "You! What did you do?" Eli just raised his hands. "Too late to stop it now." The guard raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a hole burst through the ceiling. A spider drone dropped down and launched a small burst of electricity, knocking the guard out cold. Tharn fell to the floor, staring in shock. What is that thing?" he asked. Eli walked to the cell door just as the drone crawled to the control panel. It plugged in and sparked once, then the door slid open. "That," Eli said, "is my ride." He stepped out into the hallway, the drone climbing back onto the ceiling and leading the way. Tharn grabbed the bars of his own cell. "Wait. Take me with you." Eli paused. Tharn's eyes were wide, scared, desperate. "I don't want to die in here." Eli stared at him for a second, then nodded to the drone. It scanned Tharn, then opened his door too. "Follow close," Eli said. "And do not touch anything." They moved fast through the hallway, stepping over unconscious guards and passing through doors opened by the drone. The prison was in chaos, lights flashing red, voices yelling over the intercom, but no one knew where the attack was coming from. That's what made the Valiant Dawn so dangerous. No one could see it coming until it was already inside, in the condos already inside. In the Valiant Dawn so dangerous, no one could see it coming until it was already inside. In the security room, Warden Vexlin was losing control. "Where is this attack coming from?" he shouted. "We detect no ships. No heat signatures." A nervous officer said, "Sir, we think it's something from before the war." Vexlin's face turned pale. "Human technology?" The officer nodded. "Something old, sir, but far too advanced." Vexlin smashed a control screen in rage. "Destroy that prisoner. Kill Eli Grant now." But it was too late. Eli and Tharn reached the extraction point. A small panel opened in the floor, revealing a rising platform. Eli stepped on it and looked back at Tharn. "You still want to come?" Tharn nodded. "I have nothing here." The platform lifted them up into the waiting escape pod. As soon as the doors closed, the pod shot back toward the Valiant Dawn inside the prison. The guards watched in confusion as their systems shut down one by one. The lights died. Weapons refused to fire. Airlocks locked permanently. Panic spread through the crew like fire. Back in space, the Valiant Dawn uncloaked for the first time. Its massive form cast a shadow over the prison ship. Cannons glowed red hot, and missile pods opened like steel flowers. The crew of the Iron Grave saw it on their monitors, and they froze. What is that ship?" one officer asked. The warden stared in silence. Then he whispered, "That is a ghost from the past." The Valiant Dawn fired once, just once. A beam of blue energy cut through one of the prison's power cores. It didn't destroy the whole ship, but it left a message. Eli Grant had returned, and he was not hiding anymore, inside the Valiant Dawn. Eli stepped onto the bridge again after 300 years. The metal floor felt familiar beneath his boots. The screens lit up as Cassandra's voice greeted him. "Welcome home, Captain." Ellie smiled as he looked out the window at the prison ship, now sparking and broken in the distance. "Set course," he said. "We have work to do." And the Valiant Dawn turned its nose toward the stars, ready for the battles ahead. The KD's iron grave drifted in space, broken and powerless. Smoke leaked from its side. Lights were dark, alarms silent, inside the ship. The guards no longer shouted orders. Some sat on the floor with their heads in their hands. Others just stared at the burning hole left by the blast from the valiant Dawn. No one had ever seen a ship like that before. The stories of Terran warships had become myths dailies to scare children or amuse old veterans, but now every Karg officer aboard knew the truth. Those stories were real, and they were back. Eli stood on the bridge of the valiant Dawn, looking calm but alert. Cassandra's soft voice echoed through the room. All systems operational, no pursuit detected. Enemy ship remains crippled. Tharn stood beside him, staring at everything with wide eyes. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. There were no buttons or levers, just glowing panels, floating screens, and machines that moved on their own. The ship felt alive, almost like it was breathing. "You flew that thing?" Tharn asked, still shocked. "I commanded it," Eli replied. "We were built for each other." He walked forward, looking at the large screen showing stars. "And now we're going to finish what we started," Cassandra responded. "Navigation. Locked on Sector 9. Human resistance signal detected on Outer Rim Colony." Eli nodded. "Let's remind them what hope feels like." The ship moved with incredible speed. Stars became streaks as the jump engines activated. Tharn stumbled backward, grabbing a nearby wall to steady himself. "You okay?" Eli asked without looking back. Tharn nodded slowly. "I've never flown like this." "You'll get used to it," Eli said. "We're going to be doing a lot of it." Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, a small group of human survivors sat in an underground bunker on a desert planet. Their faces were tired, their clothes worn out. They had been hiding from the Dominion for years, stealing food, staying quiet, hoping they wouldn't be found. But now something had changed. A message had arrived. It was short. Just one line broadcast in an ancient human code. Only a few people alive could still read it. "The valiant Dawn flies again." When they read those words, some dropped to their knees and wept. Others looked at the sky with disbelief. "Captain Grant," one old soldier whispered. "He's alive." Word spread quickly across the hidden human networks. From asteroid colonies to jungle outposts, rebel fighters stopped what they were doing to read the message again and again. The one they had lost hope in had returned, back on the valiant Dawn. Eli watched the stars with a hard gaze. Cassandra gave updates. 3 former Terran satellites still operational in this sector, activating relay signals. "Do it," Eli said. "Let them know I'm coming." Tharn leaned against a panel, watching in silence. "Why now?" he asked. "Why return after all this time?" Eli didn't answer at first. He took a deep breath, then said, "Because the galaxy forgot what humans were capable of. They thought they erased us, but they only made us stronger." He turned and faced Tharn. "And now they're going to remember." Suddenly, an alert rang through the ship. Red lights flashed across the screen. Cassandra spoke quickly. "Dominion scout ship detected on intercept course. Estimated contact in 6 minutes." Eli stepped toward the command panel. "Weapon systems?" "Fully charged," Cassandra said. "Stealth mode engaged. They haven't spotted us yet." Eli thought for a moment. "Don't fire unless they fire first. Let's see if they want to talk or die." The scout ship came into view, smaller than the valiant Dawn but fast. Its sharp black hull and red markings identified it as Karg military. It slowed when it reached visual range. Trying to scan them but failing. "Open a channel," Eli ordered. A second later, a Karg officer's face appeared on the screen, eyes narrow, teeth clenched. "Identify yourselves." The alien growled. "This is Captain Eli Grant," he said, "of the Terran fleet." The Karg officer laughed coldly. "Impossible, Terran. Fleet is dead." "Then consider me a ghost," Eli said calmly. "Turn back now, or be destroyed." The Karg officer growled again. You think you scare us, human? We crushed your people long ago. Eli's voice grew sharp. And yet, here I am. Still flying, still fighting. The carg ship powered its weapons. Then die again. Cassandra spoke instantly. They've locked on. Eli didn't blink. Return fire. The valiant Dawn fired a single blue beam. It hit the scout ship clean through the middle, splitting it in half. Flames and metal floated into the dark. Target destroyed, Cassandra confirmed. Tharn stared at the screen. You didn't even give them a chance. They already had one, Eli replied. They chose wrong. Silence fell on the bridge. Only the quiet hum of the ship's systems remained. Cassandra then said, multiple. Rebel channels reporting the message received. They're asking for orders. Ele turned to the main screen again, where a map of the galaxy glowed softly. Many sectors still showed red Dominion controlled, but here and there, small blinking blue dots began to appear. We give them a signal, he said. Something to follow. He placed his hand on the control panel and spoke with calm fire in his voice. Send this message to all frequencies. Cassandra waited. Eli said, Earth lives, the valiant Dawn flies again. The fight begins now. Across the stars, people began to rise, and the war, forgotten for centuries, was about to return. The valiant Dawn drifted silently through the starfield, its hull glowing faintly as energy pulsed through its systems. The ship was no longer hiding, no longer asleep. It was awake, alive, and ready for war. Inside the ship, Eli Grant stood. At the center of the command deck, his hands rested on the glowing controls. His eyes were locked on a large screen, showing dozens of small blue dots appearing across the galaxy. Each blue dot was a signal. Each one meant that someone had heard his message. Some were old human bunkers deep underground. Some were tiny outposts hidden on moons. Some were just old ships parked in asteroid fields, broken but not forgotten. These were the last pieces of humanity's scattered resistance. Now they were waking up. Cassandra's voice filled the room, calm and clear. Rebel activity rising across 4 sectors. Human resistance cells confirming your identity, awaiting orders. Tharn stood beside Eli, still trying to understand everything. So they all really thought you were dead? He asked quietly. Eli nodded. I made sure they believed it. It was the only way to protect what remained. But why go silent for so long? Tharn asked. Why disappear? Eli looked at him and answered, because we weren't ready. We needed time to heal, rebuild, hide, and because the galaxy had to forget us first, so that we could strike when it mattered most. Tharn was silent for a moment, then said, they didn't forget completely. Eli smirked. No, they didn't. That's why they locked me away. Cassandra spoke again. Incoming transmission, audio only, origin, Sector 12, identity. Match, Commander Reese Dalton. Eli straightened. Put him through. A voice came through the speakers, old but strong. Eli. Is it really you? It's me, Reese, Eli replied. Still breathing, still fighting. Damn. The man laughed softly. Didn't think I'd hear your voice again. Not after all these years. You kept the signal alive, Eli. Said, you did well. Reese's voice turned serious. We've got people ready to move. But they're scared. The Dominion has wiped out every uprising for decades. We can't afford to lose again. We're not going to lose, Eli said. Firmly, not this time. We have the valiant Dawn. And I'm calling back the rest of the fleet. Reese paused. The rest of the fleet? You mean? I hid them, Eli said. Before Earth fell, I sent orders to a dozen captains, told them to vanish, bury their ships, wait for the signal. That signal just went out. Tharn stepped forward, confused. Wait, you're saying there are more ships like this one? More Terran warships? Eli nodded slowly. Not as powerful as the Dawn, but strong. Enough to punch a hole through the Dominion if we strike together. Cassandra added, message received by 6 of 12 dormant Terran units. Response pending. Estimated reactivation. 27 hours. Tharn stared at the screen, his eyes wide. You planned all this. 300 years ago. Eli didn't answer at first. He looked out the window, watching a comet pass slowly in the distance. Then he said, "War takes more than weapons. It takes patience, strategy, and belief. The Dominion thought they ended us, but they only lit the fuse." Cassandra interrupted. "Warning, new transmission detected, Dominion channel. High encryption level, routing message." A hologram appeared in the center of the command deck. It was a Dominion broadcast meant for their military and leaders. A tall, cold-looking Karg general stood at a podium. His voice echoed through the ship. "We have confirmed the return of the Terran dreadnought, known as the Valiant Dawn. The human Eli Grant is alive. He is considered the highest threat to Dominion stability. Orders are to capture or eliminate him by any means necessary." The message ended with an image of Eli's face, marked with a bounty label. "Wanted, dead or alive," Tharn chuckled. "Congratulations, you're famous again." Eli didn't smile. "Good, let them come." Cassandra displayed a new map on the screen. "Dominion forces are converging on Sector 9, estimated arrival in 36 hours. Eli stared at the map, then said, "Good. Then we strike before they do, Reese." "I'm here," Reese answered. "Tell every cell in range to meet me at Outpost Helix. That's where we'll begin." Tharn looked surprised. "That's a mining station. Barely has any defenses." "That's what makes it perfect," Eli said. "They won't see it coming." Cassandra began to activate more systems. Preparing jump coordinates to Outpost Helix. Shield generators ready. Weapon systems fully charged. Tharn looked at Eli. "You're not just fighting to survive, are you?" Eli turned to face him. "No, I'm fighting to win." The Valiant Dawn turned smoothly, engines glowing, preparing to vanish into space once more. The hum of the power core echoed through the walls like a heartbeat, steady and strong. Eli placed his hand on the command table. "Wake them all, Cassandra. It's time the Dominion learned why they feared us in the first place." The stars blurred as the ship jumped to light speed, and across the galaxy, old warriors, rebels, and ghosts of the past rose up, because Eli Grant had returned, and this time, he wasn't coming back to hide across their controlled space. Command centers buzzed with emergency alerts, officers shouted orders, holograms blinked red, and leaders gathered in panic. Reports kept coming in, strange energy spikes, ships going silent, human rebel activity rising everywhere, and in every message one name appeared again and again: Eli Grant, the name they had buried centuries ago, the name they feared would return. On the Dominion capital world, a meeting was called. Every high-ranking general and council member stood around a large round table. A massive screen showed the Valiant Dawn in full view. Captured during its brief uncloak, the supreme strategist, a tall, cold-looking being named Kravsur, slammed his metal hand on the table. "We ended the Terrans. How is this possible?" One of the officers, his voice shaking, said, "We believed we destroyed their last fleet, but this warship, it's from the old days. Its power signature is ancient, but it's running on upgraded systems. It's stronger than anything we have." Kravsur growled. "It's just one ship." Another voice answered, "One ship has already cost us 3 outposts, dozens of patrol units, and hundreds of soldiers." A silence followed. Then an older general stepped forward, his face tight with worry. "We've heard this name before. From our history files, Eli Grant was not just a captain. He was their battle leader. The Terrans followed him like a god, if he's alive. The others may follow too." Kravsur narrowed his eyes. "Then we destroy him before they rise." He turned toward the screen, watching the image of the Terran dreadnought fade into the stars. "I want every hunter fleet we have to track him down, every bounty hunter, every warship, every eye. Eli Grant must be erased." While they planned, Eli was already moving. The Valiant Dawn came out of lightspeed near Outpost Helix, a small mining station hidden in an asteroid belt. The station was falling apart, rusted walls, broken antennae, and weak energy fields, but that was exactly why Eli chose it. No one would expect a counterattack to begin here, inside the outpost. A group of rebels had already gathered. Some wore old Terran uniforms, some wore scraps of armor, some had no gear at all. But they all stood tall when Eli entered the room. They looked at him like a ghost made of flesh. "Captain," one of them said, his voice trembling. Eli raised a hand. "No need for titles here. Just people ready to fight back." Reese Dalton stepped forward from the crowd, older now, with gray in his beard and fire in his eyes. "They thought you were gone, Eli." Eli nodded. "That's what kept us alive." Reese looked around the room. "We have fighters, but they're scattered. Weapons are few, and ships are slow. We don't need many," Eli said. "We just need to hit them where it hurts." Cassandra's voice came from a small device on Eli's wrist. "Dominion fleets are forming. Estimated arrival in this sector, 16 hours. One of the younger rebels, a woman named Nora, stepped forward. "You're serious? You want to fight them here? With this junk station and a few scrap ships?" Eli looked at her, then smiled. "No," she frowned. "No. We're not staying here," Eli said. "We're using this place as bait." He tapped the control on his wrist, and a hologram appeared, showing a nearby fuel station owned by the Dominion. It powered 5 nearby colonies and was protected by only a few ships. "This is our target," Eli said. "We hit it. We cut their fuel lines then. We run fast and leave them chasing ghosts." Reese nodded slowly. "Hit and vanish just like old times," Cassandra added. "Reinforcements from dormant Terran fleets en route. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. Tharn, standing in the corner, watched it all with amazement. "You're going to fight a whole empire with tricks and timing?" Ailey turned to him and said, "Tricks and timing won us the last war. It'll work again." Preparations began fast. The Valiant Dawn loaded its Ashwing fighters. The rebel ships were upgraded with cloaking skins and decoy signals. Pilots were briefed, weapons were tested, and even the old mining drones were fitted with explosives. When everything was ready, Eli stood before the small fleet. "We're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to show the galaxy that we're still here. That Terrans don't vanish, we rise." Cheers filled the outpost, fists raised. High voices shouting his name. Even Nora, who had doubted before, stood proud now. As the ships launched from the station and vanished into space, Eli watched from the bridge of the Valiant Dawn. The stars stretched again as the ship moved toward the enemy's weak spot. And somewhere deep inside Dominion space, leaders began to realize what they had done. They hadn't destroyed a relic. They had awakened a storm. The stars were quiet, but that silence would not last. The Valiant Dawn hovered above a dying sun, its engines humming softly, weapons armed, shields pulsing. The ship was ready for its final strike. Inside the command deck, Captain Eli Grant stood still, his eyes fixed on the giant screen in front of him. It showed a burning Dominion fuel station, flames dancing across metal platforms, enemy ships scattered in confusion. They never expected a human attack here. "That's why it worked," Cassandra's voice came through clearly. "Target destroyed. Supply lines in this region are now disrupted. Nearby colonies will be powerless in 3 days." Eli nodded slowly. "Good, that will make them panic." Behind him, Tharn looked at the data with wide eyes. "You actually did it," he said. "One strike. And you shook their whole system." Eli glanced at him. "That's how we fought. Before, we never needed to match their numbers. We only needed to hit where it hurt most." On the other side of the galaxy, Dominion High Command was collapsing into chaos. Reports kept arriving, each one worse than the last. Human warships attacking in multiple sectors, satellites going dark, supply stations destroyed, communication towers gone. One message said, "We think the old Terran fleets have returned." Another said, "We are not fighting rebels anymore. We are fighting soldiers, and worst of all, no one could stop them." Back on the Valiant Dawn, Cassandra interrupted the silence. "Incoming transmission from Allied fleet. 6 Terran warships approaching. ETA 5 minutes." Eli turned to look at the glowing map. One by one, The ships appeared sleek, powerful. Survivors from the past, each ship had stayed hidden for 300 years, waiting for Eli's signal. Now they had returned, the Solace, the Iron Warden, the Midnight Lance, the Aurora Flame, the Crimson Gale, and the Storm Piercer, all ancient. Terran ships, each one a legend. They formed up beside the valiant Dawn, ready to strike as one. Cassandra said, "All captains reporting in, standing by for your orders." Eli stepped forward, his voice steady. "Broadcast to all frequencies. Let the galaxy hear us." A moment later, his voice echoed across space, carried by old Terran satellites and hacked Dominion relays. "This is Captain Eli Grant of the Terran fleet," he said. "We have returned, not to beg, not to hide, but to rise." He paused for a second, then added, "To every free world, to every rebel cell, to every child who was told Earth is gone, this is your answer." "We are not gone, we never were." Rebels across the galaxy stood up. On broken worlds, in hidden bases, on pirate ships and refugee stations, people listened in silence. Then they started cheering. They cried, they laughed, they prepared to fight. The Dominion tried to block the message, but it was too late. It had already spread. Cassandra's voice returned. "Dominion main fleet has entered this sector. 32 warships approaching fast." Eli's eyes stayed calm. "Positions?" "Estimated engagement in 12 minutes, she said. "They've brought everything." Reese's voice came through the comms. "You really want to do this, Eli? 32 ships against 7? Eli smiled slightly. "Let's give them." A reminder, the Terran fleet formed into a V-shape. The valiant Dawn at the center, its hull shining under the light of the nearby sun. Behind it, rows of Ashwing fighters floated like birds of prey, waiting to be unleashed. Cassandra counted. "Down, enemy in range in 10. 9, 8. Tharn gripped a nearby rail, heart pounding. "This is suicide." Eli glanced at him. "No," he said, "this is history." The first Dominion ship fired, a bright beam shooting across space. But the valiant Dawn moved fast, twisting in a maneuver no Dominion vessel could match. The beam missed, passing harmlessly into the void. Then Eli said, "Fire." The Terran fleet answered with fury, blue beams, plasma bolts. Shock torpedoes all blasted toward the enemy, shields cracked. Ships exploded, engines screamed as power surged across the battlefield. The valiant Dawn led the charge, its cannons roaring like thunder. The Dominion fought back, but they were slow. Their ships were large but clumsy, built for fear, not speed. In just minutes, 5 of their warships were gone, and then, more blue dots appeared on the battlefield, more Terran ships, answering the signal late, but ready to fight. They jumped in from hidden sectors, old colonies, even the edge of known space. The battlefield was no longer 32 against 7, it was now 32 against 20, and growing. The Dominion's fleet began to pull back, their captains shouted for retreat, their systems overloaded. The Terran fleet didn't give chase. They just held the line, letting the enemy run. Inside the valiant Dawn, Cassandra's voice sounded proud. Enemy retreat confirmed, remaining hostile forces exiting the sector. The crew of the Terran fleet began to cheer. Lights flashed, sirens faded, weapons cooled, and in that moment, humanity had done what no one believed possible. They had won. Eli Grant stood quietly on the bridge, staring into space, his eyes wet but his voice calm. "Tell Earth," he said, "it's time to come home." Cassandra answered, "Signal sent." And far, far away, on a small blue planet hidden behind a shield of stars, lights began to turn on. For the first time in centuries, Earth sent a signal back.